On today's episode, we'll see if we can hear the difference between these old blue molded capacitors and these newer capacitors in a vintage Fender Deluxe Reverb. In a previous episode, I introduced this old Fender Deluxe Reverb, which, despite how it looks from the front, is actually a 1964 Deluxe Reverb that's had a lot of parts changed on it over the years. And I've been gradually trying to bring it back to original condition, or as close as I can get to it. When I got the amp, the seller gave me this bag of parts, and these are some of the original parts that were removed from the amp over the years. And in there I found these two blue molded capacitors, which had been removed and replaced with some newer capacitors. And you'd think that there was a good reason they were removed, but maybe not. Maybe somebody was just trying to change the sound a little bit. So I'm going to give it a shot and see if they can be put back in, and hopefully they work properly. These are the caps that I'm going to change right here. There's kind of a mess going on to the side of them too here. These components are just kind of floating here in the air. I think they should be using these holes here that are not being used at the moment. But I think everything is hooked up the way it's supposed to be according to the circuit, but it's just not done well. Before I removed the capacitors, I recorded a sound sample through the amplifier using a looper pedal so that we'd have a reference for what these capacitors sounded like. And then when I put the old blue capacitors in, I'll play the same loop and see if we can hear a difference. And I'll record the sample at two different volume settings on the amp, one with the volume at 6 and one fully up on 10. And this is all going to be in the vibrato channel. This is where the capacitors are on the Fender layout. One end of them goes to the bass control on the vibrato channel. So both sets of capacitors, both the newer ones and the old ones, are marked 0.047 microfarads, and then the other one is 0.1 microfarads. One interesting thing that I noticed with the 0.047 caps, on the layout and on the schematic, it's actually labeled as a 0.033. But I checked online, I checked photos of other old Deluxe Reverbs where I could see enough detail and zoom in, and they also had 0.047 in the spot, so I'm just going to stick with it. So once I had the pink ones out, I measured all of them to see what the actual capacitance is. The ones that were supposed to be 0.047 measured 0.048, and the ones that were supposed to be 0.1 were 0.097 and 0.102. So they were all pretty close. Then it was time to put the blue caps back in, and I was careful to put them back in the original orientation. There's a black stripe on one end of them that I believe indicates the outside of the foil. And I could tell what the original orientation was of these by the way they were glued together with the silicone. So I put them back in the same way that they were. And then I recorded the same sound sample with the looper. And now here are the samples, starting with the pink ones. And I would recommend listening to this through full range speakers. If you're listening to this through the little speaker on your phone, you're probably not going to hear the low end well enough to hear the difference. And now the blue ones. And now here they are on 10. And now I'll toggle back and forth a bit between the two. So what does this test tell us? Not sure. I can hear a difference in the sound. Is it because of the tiny differences in the values of the capacitors, or is it because of the composition of the capacitors? Don't know. So I hear more low end coming through with the blue caps. To some people that might be mud, and some people that might be warmth. And the pink ones sound brighter to me, and I guess I would describe them as high fidelity compared to the blue ones. And I didn't hear anything that would indicate there was anything wrong with these capacitors. No strange noises or anything. They don't appear to be leaky. I'm not a professional amp tech, so there may be something I'm missing, but they sound good to me and appear to be fine. And I'm going to leave these blue caps in and see what else I can do with this amp to make sure that it's sounding as well as it can. So stay tuned for more videos, and thanks for watching.